Well, good morning, Countryside. Thank you for joining me this morning. This is an interesting morning because there was a couple of conversations I had in my house. Actually, it was conversations I was listening to between my wife and her sister that prompted this post. I've always been a guy who believes that we should have good discernment as Christians, and I've heard about a movie on Netflix. Let's just get right down to the point, called Cuties, and I've seen the craziness that's going on social media platforms all over the place between Christians, actually. And what's worrisome about this is that there are so many people who claim to be Christians that are encouraging other Christians to watch this movie, Cuties. Now, I don't know if you know about the movie. If you've not heard about it, the best place to get any information on it is pluggedinonline.com. They have a synopsis of the movie. That way you don't have to watch anything about it. From what I've read in the synopsis and what I've heard in the discussions between my wife and my sister-in-law, this movie is filth. And unfortunately, there are so many Christians who are calling other Christians to be, let me put this in air quotes, open-minded about this film, because the film claims to be kind of a diatribe against the over-sexualization of little girls in our culture. But for all intents and purposes, that is exactly what the movie does. And it's worrisome to me that Christians, people who claim to be Christians, lack so much discernment about stuff like this. We have this call all the time to be open-minded. We have a call to be, to see for ourselves before we pass judgment. And yet, over and over in Scripture, we see that we are to be people who have discernment, who don't have to fill our lives with garbage to determine what we want to do with it. In fact, we're supposed to avoid putting stuff like this in. We're supposed to be holy, set apart. We're supposed to understand what's going on in culture so that we can join the narrative, but we don't have to fill our lives with junk. And now, I won't watch the trailer. I won't watch anything about it. I will never watch the movie. You couldn't chain me to a chair and make me watch it. But I am floored that any person claiming to be a follower of Christ would put this in their minds. And this absolute lack of discernment is frankly, it's overwhelming. You cannot preach against something by doing the same thing. We call that, actually the world calls that hypocrisy. If a person in the church says one thing but then doesn't live that way, man, the red flags pop up, the word hypocrite is thrown around, and yet we have Christians who are saying, hey, we should be open-minded about this. This movie portrays 11-year-old actors sexually and explicitly and all of these terrible things, and yet there's no flag waving of hypocrisy on that. That scares me. Jesus even called out the Pharisees, because the Pharisees tried to claim that Jesus was doing miracles by the power of Satan. Actually, he cast a demon out of a man, and some of the people in the crowd thought, well, maybe this is the Messiah. And the Pharisees said this, verse 24 of Matthew 12 says, but when the Pharisees heard it, they said, it is only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this man casts out demons. Knowing their thoughts, he said to them, every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. Now, it begs the question, how does the world operate in this way? How do people who make films like this say that they are anti-over-sexualization of our culture when they do that same thing? So Christian, do not be fooled by people telling yourself to subject yourself to this movie. If you've read the synopsis, you should know that this is child pornography portrayed as something else. We have a serious problem in our culture. Let's be honest. We have a problem in our culture of over-sexualizing little girls and exposing little boys to that. And it's in advertising. It's basically how social media works. And it's in so many places that we do not need to be advocating for it or even against it by doing the same thing. Jesus was, he had a soft spot in his heart for children. Matthew 18 says, and calling a child to him, he put him in the midst of them and said, truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. Listen, church, don't subject yourself to this movie. Don't go watch it. Have discernment. Have wisdom. Avoid such things. We are told to be people who dwell on good things, on holy things, on righteous things, who stand against stuff like this. Jesus was Jesus was big on even us having the innocence and humility of children. And when we entertain things like this, when Christians tell you to be open-minded, turn and run. Because Jesus didn't tell us to be open-minded. He told us to be God-minded. He told us to be Him-minded. He told us to be humble and innocent. And so let's be those people. Let's fight against the over-sexualization of our culture, not by doing it or watching it or supporting it, but by preaching against it and believing against it and praying against it and living against it. That's how we change our culture, not by doing the things that the culture does. Well, that was my rant really for today, and hopefully it didn't bum out your day, and hopefully it will give you and help you down that road of discernment. Thanks for joining me. Love you. Praying for you. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.